At least 43 people, including 15 children, are now known to have been killed in flash flooding in Texas. Rescue teams are searching for more than 20 girls still missing from a summer camp that was struck by fast-flowing waters. The flood swept through south-central Texas, hitting Kerr County on the Guadalupe River. Children and adults slept as months' worth of rain fell in just a few hours.
Camp Mystic. The private summer camp, perched along the Guadalupe River near Hunt, Texas, was inundated early Friday morning after hours of relentless rain sent the river surging over 8 meters in less than an hour. Rescue crews are working around the clock, while parents wait, some more than a day without word.
Camp Mystic is a camp that has over 750 kids. Right now there are 20-some that aren't accounted for. That does not mean they've been lost. They could be in a tree, they could be out of communication. We're praying for all of those missing to be found alive.
The flooding caught many by surprise. What started as heavy overnight rain quickly escalated into a deadly emergency as rivers swelled and communities were overwhelmed. The National Weather Service called it a 1,000-year event, and the damage stretches for miles. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has declared a disaster across 15 counties and says every available resource is being deployed.
And know this, we remain in a search and rescue posture right now. So it's been going on over the course of the day, and you're going to hear stories here momentarily about exactly what has been achieved through those search and rescue missions. They will continue in the darkness of night. They will be taking place when the sun rises in the morning. They will be nonstop, seeking to find everybody who is unaccounted for.
The water may be receding, but the impact of this flood is only beginning to surface. Officials say the coming days will be critical, not just in the search for the missing, but in helping communities begin to recover from one of the state's deadliest natural disasters in years.
Well, for more on this, let's bring in meteorologist Matthew Cappucci. Great to have you back, Matthew. Why were these flash floods so intense?
Well, about 6 or 7 days ago, last Monday, we had a landfall of a tropical storm down in Mexico, completely unrelated, or at first so it seems. Barry moved ashore, it dumped a lot of rainfall in Tamaulipas, Mexico, but it really saturated the air mass. And over the course of the past 5-6 days, that same juiced up, moisture-rich air mass advected or moved north into Texas, setting the stage for heavy downpours. The issue was we weren't sure whether or not there'd be a trigger. There were no widespread weather systems or cold fronts, only subtle little features that you can only kind of sniff out at the last minute, and unfortunately that's what happened. A few smaller local features came together to produce the downpours, and those downpours fed off an incredibly moisture-rich air mass, and the results, unfortunately, tragic. In fact, Burnet, Texas saw 9.1 centimeters worth of rain in just 1 hour's time. They saw about 22 centimeters in 3 hours, and all this water poured into area rivers, the Guadalupe River rising 8 meters in 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's incredible when you hear these figures. But going back to what you said there, officials say that the floods were not predicted, but from what you're saying, it kind of sounds like they may have been able to predict at least intense rainfall. Can you give us a bit more details why they were saying it wasn't predicted?
Yeah, Pablo, you're exactly right. So going into the episode, we knew there was at least a slight chance of some flooding. There's a flash flood watch in effect. But, that's not typically, or that's not, terribly atypical for this time of year. You do get some flooding from time to time. I think we knew there would likely be flooding. We didn't know it would be this bad. The reason being, this was something called a mesoscale event. A mesoscale meaning something sort of localized and something that's really tough to see more than 6 hours out. What wound up happening is we had something called a mesoscale convective vortex. That sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but basically that's a little leftover swirl in the atmosphere left behind by a previous day's storms. So earlier in the week, Tuesday into Wednesday, we had a little leftover swirl that eventually moved towards Texas Hill Country and parked. And that swirled north more moisture, and that also focused downpours. And so that little teeny feature was something weather models couldn't see more than 6 hours out, and that made all the difference in causing slow-moving, stagnant downpours with incredible tropical rainfall rates.
Yeah, certainly incredible. Now, more rain is forecast for the area, but is the worst now over?
I do think the worst is over. I think the worst is pushing east of Interstate 35. And the other subtle piece of good news is that the heavier rains are moving into terrain that is less prone to flash flooding. Just to give folks some geography, this area that's been hardest hit is west of I-35, the main north-south thoroughfare. It's west of San Antonio, west of Austin, Texas, in what's called Hill Country. And it's a very hilly terrain up by the Edwards Plateau and Hill Country. In fact, they actually even grow grapes and have wineries up there. And so all this terrain kind of focuses the moisture and focuses all the water into only a few small rivers. And that's what made this flood event so bad. The good news, though, the bulk of the moisture is moving east. I don't really think there's much forcing, much oomph to get more thunderstorms. So we're heading in the right direction. It's not all over yet, but I do think at least these high-end extreme flood scenarios are likely beginning to wind down.
Great to have your expertise as always. Meteorologist Matthew Cappucci, thank you.